Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the League 2 show, presented to you by Over the Bar. This week, as always, I am joined by David. And just real quickly, David, before we get into the show, and of course the preview this week, as we will be previewing the games this week, tell us about, because you went to a game, or the last match day, Rochdale's last away game at Carlisle. Quickly, because I know you didn't have the best of experiences, and it does sound as though I'm rubbing it in a bit, but I'm really not. How was the game? And out of anything, was it a good experience? Was the hospitality any good? Is Carlisle a good away place to go?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Really short walk from the city centre. A couple of Wetherspoons, so you can get a couple of cheap pints, so you can't grumble at that too much. Seems to be no issues with the Carlisle fans outside. They all seem relatively friendly enough. In terms of the game, it was quite frustrating. Rochdale, for me, dominated the whole game, but Carlisle's defence was very resolute. You could tell they were up for the fight, given the position they're in. Paul Simpson really got them organised. Only 2 games in, but they are looking like a very strong unit already. I was a bit disappointed because I went up to visit a friend who lives in Carlisle, and he was saying there was a lot of buzz around the town and the fan base, and they're expecting a bigger crowd. And it didn't feel like there was a much bigger crowd than what I was expecting anyway. The atmosphere was, even when they went not 1-0 up, very flat. I didn't know if it was because we were dominating at that point. It felt like it was against sort of play or whatnot. But yeah, I was kind of expecting a little bit more from the Carlisle fans, but the end of the day, they got 3 points, so I'm sure they won't give 2 hoots what I'm saying about their fan base on the night. But yeah, quite frustrating coming away with no points, but it's football for you, isn't it, at the end of the day?
So, Paul Simpson, let's quickly talk about him, because on the last show we did together, we were talking about how Paul Simpson, prior to this job, hasn't actually had a lot of experience. So, okay, he's managed the England under-17s, was it? I think I'm right in saying that. And he's also had various caretaker jobs, but a bulk of his jobs came in the 2010s. So, are you surprised at the start he's had at Carlisle United?
Not really, no, because he had a great stint when he was there last time. Like I was saying the other week, he was a local. Well, he is a local lad, and he does have the backing of the town. We don't know what he's been doing. I know he's had that stint with the England youth set up, but we don't know what he's been doing that time frame. Like in terms of like his football and education, his coaching education. I know he was quite ill a year or 2 ago, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think it's one of those. He's gone away after a few bad jobs on the bounce, and he's come back really refreshed, learnt a lot, and he's really benefiting Carlisle at the moment.
And finally, let's quickly talk about Rochdale, because again, it wasn't a great performance at all. But you lined up with a 3-4-3. Did you think it worked? Did you think that the formation really played well on the field? Like, how did it look from the point of view of somebody in the stands?
It's the system we've tried to persist with all season. And I think we're only just starting to get the players for it. We were short at the back the other night, and our January signed James Ball, who's a bit more of a box-to-box midfielder, had to slot in at centre-back, but according to Robbie Stockdale in a post-match interview, Ball has played there before, so you have to trust the manager's judgment on that, but I'd have preferred to see a slight change in system to maybe give some like Carlisle something else to think about, because we have played that formation for the most part of the season. We have become a bit predictable at times, but on the night itself, we had 3 huge chances. 2 fell to Matty Dome, 1 to Conor Grant, and we should have scored at least 2 of them. So, yeah, it's just one of those things, unfortunately. Hopefully we bounce back tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be talking about Rochdale Sutton a little bit later on the show. So, yeah, hopefully we bounce back this weekend, but it will be a tough game to come back into.
And we'll talk about that later on in the preview. Good evening to everybody in the chat, by the way. Good evening to Mark Baker. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Just a real quick plug. Tonight we are doing, and this is a League 2 exclusive, by the way. We don't do this on the League 1 show. Your game of the weeks, performances of the week, and your villains of the week. So get them in for the end of the show, and we will, of course, be reading them out. Again, this is a preview show show today, so we won't be reviewing as many games as we normally would, unless there's a really significant game that you would like us to talk about. And again, just finally, get your questions in. We will answer them at the end of the show as well. So with our preview, we're actually going to start with your game away at Sutton. So Sutton, have you ever been there before? What are you expecting from the game? And Sutton have been performing quite well this season. So are you optimistic, maybe a bit pessimistic heading into the game?
If I'm not mistaken, I think this is our first competitive fixture with Sutton, so I've not had the opportunity to go there before. I was at the home game earlier in the season when it was a 90th minute winner from Aaron Morley that got us I am going to say a well-deserved 3 points because we were the better team on the day, even though we threw away a 2-0 lead seemingly out of nowhere. It won't be an easy game. Sutton are where they are on merit. They have only won one of their last 5 games. Obviously, 1 win in there, 1 draw. So yeah, it's not the easiest of games just to go into, but from what I've seen so far this season, we tend to play better against the better sides, and the result we got at home to Northampton last week goes some way to show that. We had a decent performance with Forest Green for the first 70 minutes, so we've shown many a time this season we do play well against the sides up there, and I'm hoping for the same on Saturday against Sutton.
So, from Matt Gray's point of view, would he be hoping that this game is a 3-pointer? Because again, Sutton are in very good form at the moment. When you look at them in the table, they're very, very close to the automatics. So, are their next couple of games must winners?
When you look at them, it's a very difficult one because Sutton are massively overperforming for where they should have been expecting to be at this stage of the season. Their next 2 league games are against struggling sides. Us tomorrow, Walsall next week. So there's a real, and then obviously they've got an EFL trophy game against Wigan sandwiched in the middle of that. So they've got the capability to get a couple of back-to-back wins. It's not going to be easy for Sutton. Rochdale will put up a challenge, and Walsall looking a little bit better under Flynn. So it's not going to be easy, but Sutton are looking like a really strong, resolute side, and yeah, they'll be very difficult to beat. But they are where they are on merit, and they're massively overperforming. So yeah, fair play to them.
Mark Baker, trying to work out what shirt Dave is wearing tonight. Quickly, what shirt are you wearing? Because I was trying to work that out as well.
Yeah, so it's a Argentinian second division side. I keep getting the second, so it's Boca Unidos. So again, it's the mystery football shirt subscription that I sign up to. This is my February box. So yeah, got some interesting regarding surprise shirts coming next week. So once it's all in place, we'll get that announced for you next week. But yeah, this month's offering. Check them out. They do some really, really good shirts. So I think I've had about 6 or 7 off them now, and they've all been like top draw. So yeah, if you're into random football shirts like I am, check them out because so you guys seem to respond to them each week because of how random they are. So yeah, check them out.
And now we're going to go on to the rest of the preview, and we're going to now start off with top of the table. Again, we are not previewing or reviewing games so much this week. We're actually doing previews this week. So if you have any questions, then get your questions in about the previews, about what you are looking forward to this weekend if you are indeed going to a game. Top of the table, Forest Green. They've actually lost 2 games as of late. They've in their last 5, they've drawn 2, lost 1, and won 2. And tomorrow they are away at Salford City. Salford have had their own problems, of course, this season. And at the moment, as it stands, they're currently sitting 11th in the table. So, David, Forest Green versus Salford, probably a harder game for Forest Green than some would have expected.
Yeah, I've got the privilege of going to this one tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to. Rochdale being away, I thought I'd take the opportunity to catch a local game. So, yes, I'll be there tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's probably the standout fixture in League 2 this weekend. Salford, they're still in with an outside chance of the playoffs. Forest Green wobbling, so it does have all the makings of a really good game, this one tomorrow. Just looking at the results Forest Green have had. Obviously, the defeat at home to Walsall, away defeat to Crawley, and the whole away draw to Newport the last 3 games. They're not great results by any stretch of the imagination, and it does make you wonder if there are any doubts creeping into the players' minds as the finishing line approaches. They've got a huge buffer, though, haven't they, of 12 points to 4th place. So they'll still be feeling quite confident, but if they get another defeat tomorrow against a strong Salford side, doubt surely will start to creep in. But yeah, Salford looking really good still. They've got a few players to come back. So yeah, things looking really good, and it should be a belter tomorrow.
So Forest Green, they're 10 points above Northampton, and if I could quickly read through their upcoming games, tomorrow they play Salford, on Saturday the 12th of March they are at home to Bradford, and on Tuesday the 15th they are again at home to Leyton Orient. So bar the Salford game, they have got a few decent games coming up, a lot of them being at home as well. So can you maybe see them capitalising on their next couple of games, including their game away to Salford tomorrow?
So you'd have thought like home games against like Walsall and Crawley, you'd have expected them to get points from that. So the Salford game won't be easy. Bradford won't be easy because they'll definitely improve under Mark Hughes. So in Leyton Orient, they'll have a new manager, you'd imagine, by the 15th of March. So you'd expect them to have a new manager bounce. So it's not going to get any easier for Forest Green, especially it gets this side of the season. In League Two, a lot of clubs, like the vast majority of clubs, have still got a hell of a lot to play for. It's quite a rarity when you get to this stage of the season, and near enough every club has something to play for. So it's really, really not going to be easy. I can see Gary in the comments, despite recent results, let's be honest, Forest Green are going to be champions with a few weeks in hand, aren't they? I don't think that's a given now, Gary, if I'm being honest. A couple more dodgy results in there. All it takes is Northampton and Tranmere to put a slight run together, and the gap can close relatively quickly. So obviously, there's about 36 points to play for. Forest Green keep up this current form, they might be limping over the line at this rate, which will be end to the season, given how well they've played so far.
And good evening to Gary Jones as well. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight. So now we're going to go into second versus third in the table. Northampton Town versus Tranmere Rovers. Both teams have only won once in their last 5 games, and they're in actually pretty bad form between the two of them. So Northampton versus Tranmere Rovers, on paper, a very tight game. There's only 1 point separating them. What do you expect to see from the game, David? And do you reckon it'll be a cagey affair?
Yeah, I don't think it will be one full of goals, if I'm being honest. Say Tranmere have had a resolute defence all season, so have Northampton, 27 goals. You can see between them, it's the 2 best defences in the league, given how Forest Green have kind of let that slip over the last few weeks. So, yeah, it's going to be a tactical battle, I think, and wouldn't surprise me if we were to see a 0-0, maybe even a 1-1 draw in this one. I'm not expecting a huge goals galore in it, but I reckon it'll be a draw in this one. I don't think there's much separating the two sides, really.
So again, both teams are in pretty poor form at the moment, or are in bad form for their standards. Can you maybe see the likes of Exeter and Sutton leapfrogging them in the table?
Yeah, it's definitely a capability of that in there, especially given how tight it is. Even likes of Swindon and Bristol Rovers, they've got games in hand on the likes of Northampton and Tranmere Rovers. So all it takes for a slip up to one of them games in hand become massive, don't they? So yeah, it's very, very tight, and there's a long, long way to go. Even looking at Salford in 11th, they're 10 points behind Northampton in second place, and they've got 2 games in hand. So a lot to play for still. Like I was saying earlier, every team has near enough got something to play for, and it just makes the end of the season very exciting, doesn't it?
Agreed. And at the moment, just a real quick plug of the game. Live at the moment is Mansfield Town, who are currently 6th in the league table, versus 4th place Exeter City. As it stands, we're on the half-hour mark. The game is 0-0. We'll try and keep you updated throughout the night of the game. So the next game that we're going to talk about is Newport County, who again have been in fairly indifferent form. In their last 5, they've only won 1, lost 1, drawn their other 3. And tomorrow they are at home to Bristol Rovers in what I assume is a derby. I don't know whether they call it a derby, but it looks like one. So, real quickly, David, Bristol Rovers, they're 9th at the moment. They could be underdogs for the playoffs. Newport County have been in fairly indifferent form at the moment. What are you expecting from the game? And it is a derby. Are you expecting to see a fired-up derby?
I think it's close. They're fairly close together, aren't they? I don't think it's like the most intense of local derbies. But yeah, quite local. Newport, when you say about the stats here, I've had a look at the recent results, and it's a very, very tough run. They've had Oldham a few weeks ago. We're on incredible form. They're still hanging on in there with really good form. Mansfield, they were on an absolute incredible run at the time they got the draw off them. Tranmere, third in the league, again, very good run. And Forest Green, the league leaders, even though they've had a wobble, still a really good point. So, yeah, and obviously it don't get any easier tomorrow. Yeah, so it's not any easier tomorrow at all, is it, with the informed team Bristol Rovers in town? So, very, very tough one to call. I'm sure Newport will hope that the fixture are a bit kinder to them soon, especially if they can get through this one with a point or two.
Good evening to Dan Green, who is in the chat as well. Mark Baker, it's pretty cool that you're live, when there's a game going on. Do you think you would do more live shows when there are games on, like a Soccer Saturday? Yeah, I could be Chris Kamara. You could be Jeff Stelling. You could do like the whole lineup and all of that.
Just as you say that, Ben, Mansfield have gone 1-0 up against Exeter. So there we go. Just to throw a bit of excitement into the mix. I think it's a great idea. The only issue I've got is I am either at the game, with it being a season ticket holder, or if, with it being on Tuesday night, I can watch the away games on iFollow. So, yeah, plus I think if I was to come sit upstairs and do a live show for 2-3 hours while there's like a load of games, I don't think the wife would be too happy about that every single week. So, yeah, it's a good idea, but yeah, with me going to pretty much all the home games and a handful of away games, it's logistically quite difficult for me to do.
And by the way, Farron Drawson was the goal scorer for Mansfield on the 33rd minute. So elsewhere in the league at the moment, we're now going to go down to 8th place Swindon Town, who are in actually pretty good form. They've won 3 games, lost 2 of their last 5. And tomorrow they are away at home to Bradford City. So real quickly, Swindon Town, what have you made of them? And tomorrow they're going to have a pretty tough test against Bradford, aren't they?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I'm expecting Bradford to improve somewhat under Mark Hughes. I know I was saying on the show last week, I'm not 100% sold on the Mark Hughes appointment, but they're bound to improve, surely, Bradford. But yeah, it's a difficult away trip to do at any time of the season's Bradford. Obviously, well backed from the home support. So yeah, Swindon are itching to get back into that top 7, and I'm sure they'll be hoping for a slightly easier game than this one, and because I imagine Bradford will start to get that new manager bound soon under Mark Hughes.
So Ben Garner's side is only a point off the playoffs. Do you again see this as a game that they might want to capitalise on? Because Swindon Town are going to go into the game knowing that there could be a new manager bounce at Bradford. Though at the same time, nobody knows what Bradford is going to turn up.
Yeah, that's the issue when it comes to Bradford. Nobody knows what you're going to get with them. Under Derek Adams, very inconsistent, and I think under Mark Hughes, it might take a few weeks for him to settle. Obviously, they lost at the weekend against Mansfield, but no shame in that, really. Mansfield, really good side, obviously winning again tonight so far, and been on an incredible run since the turn of the year. So, no disgrace there. So, Mark Hughes will be looking to this game for 3 points to get Bradford season kick-started, because they are 13 points outside the playoffs. I've seen stranger things happen in terms of teams making a late charge. In terms like League Two is a great example of it. There have been 7 teams that go up it gives teams that extra incentive, doesn't it, to make that late charge, because you go down all the way to 7th place for a playoff spot. So the incentive is there to try and get on a good run. It's a very, very slim chance, but you never know if you can get on a run now. Obviously, with 12 games to go, 36 points available, you never know what will happen.
So Port Vale, who at the moment are in 10th place, they're in, again, fairly indifferent form. They've drawn 4 and won 1. They are away from home at Colchester United, who themselves find themselves 20th place in the table. So they've picked up a tiny bit in recent weeks. But yeah, away from home, Port Vale, who aren't scoring many at the moment against Colchester. Are we expecting this to be an exciting game? And Colchester, yeah, would you be expecting maybe a draw from them?
Port Vale are another really difficult side to predict. If you look at their recent form, it's just a sea of draws with an odd win thrown in there. They've actually not lost now since the middle of January, and they lost at home to Salford. Obviously, I don't think Darryl Clark's back in the dugout as of yet. I know he's had a family bereavement. Hopefully, everything's all good with the Darryl Clark family. But yeah, it is a difficult one to call, because Colchester will be fighting for their lives, because I think they're one of the sides that are very, very suspect for going down. And they've not won a game now since the start of the month, when it was a very fortunate win at home away to a really poor Leyton Orient side. And it's just, I'm going to go with the Port Vale winning this one, but Colchester really needs to start showing some fight, otherwise they'll be slipping to the bottom too soon, because obviously Oldham are picking up, Carlisle are picking up, Barrow seems to pick up the odd result here and there. So yeah, they really, really need to pull their act together, and this is a game where they need to start doing that.
So with manager Wayne Brown, or interim manager Wayne Brown, making a few big calls in their recent games, with Brendan Wider, I think I pronounced that right, and Tom Eastman actually being called to the bench and not starting. Do you kind of see Wayne Brown as a manager who at the moment is simply experimenting with his squad? Because it looks as though they're going to struggle this season. So if there's any time to experiment with your squad, then it might be now.
With the position they're in, I think you need to be getting your strongest 11 out on the pitch as quickly as possible. And with 12 games to go, you need to start getting results. This isn't a good time to be messing about with formations and starting lineups. You need your strongest 11 out on the pitch, because at the end of the day, the better player is going to get you better results. So they need to find a settled 11, find a settled way of playing, and they need to do it quick, because they are running out of games, and the form's been dreadful. They really need to turn it around. And obviously, if they're not able to set on a team, settle on a formation, it doesn't look good for them, does it?
So Wayne Brown, just finally on Colchester United, he's been larking on to the press all week about big decisions. So I just mentioned big decisions in regards to dropping players, putting youngsters into the starting lineup. As you alluded to, does he really need to manage his own squad a bit better?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, I've referred to them quite a bit as retirement home SC over the course of the last couple of months. And if you've got the experienced players on there, I think, even though what I've said over the last few weeks and months, they need to get some experience on the pitch in this situation, because I think at the minute they're just an absolute free fall. They've picked up the odd win here and there, but at this stage of the season, they need to put the stringing wins together. And we're only picking up one win in 6, 7, 8 games. It does make it very difficult to pull away, because you get one win, might take up a place or two, and then if you don't win for another month, just brings you straight back down into that sticky situation.
So Crawley Town, who at the moment sit mid-table in 12th place at the moment, they are at home tomorrow to Scunthorpe United. Scunthorpe are, of course, bang bottom at the moment on 23 points. Easy win for Crawley, or do you think that Scunthorpe are going to give them a decent fight?
Scunthorpe have started to show a bit more fight over the last few weeks. I struggle to see them getting out of the situation they're in. They're still losing games. Obviously, they're not as heavy as what they were, but the Northampton draw last week, really good result. And they get battered against Sutton at the weekend as well. So, yeah, it's a very difficult situation for Scunthorpe. They are going to go down, but they need to start showing some fights so the fans can at least go into next season in the National League with a bit more optimism. Crawley, on the other hand, 2 really good results on back-to-back. Obviously getting that draw with Forest Green, and then the win against Forest Green, I should say, and then the draw with Oldham, given the run that Oldham have been on. So, yeah, things looking decent for Crawley. I think it's a bit too late for a playoff charge, and mid-table for them looks a certainty, but given at the start of the season, quite a few people predict them to be in a relegation struggle. I'm sure they'll take that.
And of course, good evening to everybody in the chat as well. Good evening to Ben Morris. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Just a real quick plug, and this is a League 2 exclusive. We only do this for the League 2 show. But your game of the week, performance of the week, and villains of the week, we will read them out at the end of the show. So get them in. Now back onto the preview, because Hartlepool United are currently sitting 13th in the table at the moment. They've drawn 3 of their last 5 games, drawing 1 and losing the other. So Hartlepool United tomorrow are away from home to Harrogate Town. So yeah, David, what are you expecting from that game? And Harrogate, they're 14th at the moment in the table. Will it be again another cagey fixture in League 2?
I think when I was saying earlier, most teams have something to play for. I think this is an exception to that. Both sides very stuck in mid-table, and again, this is one where I don't see much separating the two sides. I think this one's nailed on for a draw as well. Both sides have been on decent forms of late. If I had to nail my colours to the mast in this one and pick a winner, I think Hartlepool will edge it. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw in this one. Especially with Harrogate being the entertainers of League 2, looking at their goals scored against columns.
And just a real quick score update. Mansfield Town, Exeter City. Mansfield Town currently lead 1-0. It is half-time, and they do go into the break leading. So back on to the preview, and now we're going to go on to Walsall, who are currently 16th in the table. They've picked up a bit of form lately, mind. They have won 3 of their last 5 games, losing 1 and drawing the other. So just real quickly, before we talk about Walsall's game over the weekend, Walsall, what have you made of them? They've improved a bit recently, and do you reckon that they're now going to survive?
Yeah, I think it was very outside chance them going down anyway. Also, when they decided to sack Matty Taylor, it was the right decision. It's given Michael Flynn a really good platform to assess his squad for the rest of this season. Before, obviously, I imagine there's going to be a big cull of players in the summer. But yeah, really good run of results so far. He's been in charge for 4 games, I think it is now. Obviously, picking up 2 wins and a draw, and then the really odd exception there, the battering away at Swindon. But it's been some real tough fixing there, and they've come through some good points. I think they'll pick up another 3 tomorrow, because Barrow are a team again that are really struggling at the moment and dangling perilously above the bottom 2.
Let's quickly talk about Barrow, of course, because Barrow, as you said, are struggling at the moment. Mark Cooper is their manager. So, Barrow, what have you made of them? And Mark Cooper, has he done a good job or not? Because Mark Cooper, he is a suspect manager, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And he's seemingly struggling a bit at Barrow.
Yeah, I don't think they've had, when you look at the last 4 or 5 games, they've picked up 3 points. It's not the worst return in the world. But given the situation they're in, they're another team that needs to start picking up wins. Only 2 wins so far this calendar year, and things aren't looking any better for them. They've got a huge few weeks coming up. So they've got Walsall at home on Saturday. They're away to Rochdale on the 12th, away to Scunthorpe on the 15th, and at home to Carlisle on the 19th. And Leyton Orient, who are still hanging on in there as well, on the 26th to finish off their march. So, yeah, it doesn't look great for Barrow, but at the same time, they do need to start picking up wins, and the next month for them is crucial. They've got very winnable games over March, and sadly, I'm including Rochdale in that. So yeah, they really need to start picking up some wins. If they go into April in the bottom 4, the bottom 2, I should say, I think that's them done, because if they're going to get out of this situation, they've got the run of fixtures to do that in March.
And 19th place Carlisle will also be playing 23rd place Oldham Athletic tomorrow. Oldham have seemingly narrowed or steadied the ship a little, as they have they haven't actually lost a game in their last 5. They've actually drawn 3 and won 2. And they will be playing Carlisle United, who've won 2, lost 2 and drawn 1. So a game that could potentially be quite exciting, because both of these teams have seemingly steadied the ship, and Oldham Athletic are seemingly giving up a bit of a fight at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, both teams are. Carlisle, 2 wins on the bounce since Paul Simpson came in. Obviously, John Sheridan's brought Oldham back from the brink of relegation to give them a fighting chance. They're still in there at the minute. Obviously, they were leading the other night as well, and it looked like they were climbing out of it again for another week, but see, late equalisers costing them there. But yeah, this is going to be a really interesting game. From what I can gather, Carlisle are bringing quite a big away attendance to. I'm sure they've passed over the 1,000 ticket mark, which is it's not the shortest of journeys. So yeah, great support from the Carlisle faithful. Oldham's home support the last few weeks since Sheridan's come back in has been absolutely incredible. So the atmosphere tomorrow at Boundary Park should be for a really good one. It is a huge relegation 6-pointer. This one, Oldham do need the win more than Carlisle, I'd say. Obviously, it's easy to say at the table. If Carlisle can get a win tomorrow, it gives them a 6-point cushion, and at this stage of the season, that is huge. So I think the win is needed for Oldham more, and if Carlisle can sneak a win here, things are looking really, really good for Paul Simpson's side.
So John Sheridan at the moment, this is his 6th managerial job at Oldham. That is if you include caretaker jobs as well. Has he maybe surprised you a bit with how he's done at Oldham?
Not really, no. Just given how it seems to be a formula that's worked well for Oldham in the past. If you're struggling when you get to January, February, let's bring John Sheridan back. It's a try and trusted method now, which Oldham have used many a time. So yeah, it doesn't shock me at all. I think the issue with this appointment is it's not a long-term solution. It might work from this season, but I think if you go into next season with John Sheridan, I don't necessarily think it'll work. I think it'll just be, again, similar to what's happened in the past. They'll just start flat next season. He's a very good bounce manager, but I think long-term, I don't think Sheridan's the right appointment.
And let me just have a quick look at my notes, because I think that is all the games that we have covered. We have one more that we're going to quickly take a look at, and that is Stevenage, who are in the relegation zone at the moment. Tomorrow, they will be playing Leyton Orient away from home. So, yeah, real quickly, because I think we've briefly spoken about Leyton Orient already. Stevenage, do they need the win tomorrow? Because Leyton Orient can be vulnerable, can't they?
Yeah, Leyton Orient only 3 points outside the bottom 2 themselves. Stevenage are 2 points outside the bottom 2. So, yeah, it doesn't look great for either team. And I think any side that loses tomorrow could find themselves in deep trouble come quarter to 5 if results go against them. So, especially Stevenage, they could end up in the bottom 2 tomorrow with a loss. And Leyton Orient could go tumbling down the league as well with a defeat. So, both sides will really, really want to get the win in this one. And it could be a huge win for any side that does get it. But it is a very tough one to call this one. Stevenage have looked better under Paul Tisdale. They had that brief spell where they were putting quite a few results together, but that seems to have petered out a little bit as of late, and they've just gone back to same old Stevenage. Leyton Orient, again, very similar. The rot is setting big time on them. They're yet to register a league win in 2022, so you'd like to think something's got to give in this one tomorrow, but it's not going to be one for the purists anyway, is it?
And again, that is all we have in regards to the preview. If we've missed your team, then don't forget to let us know in the comments by sending in your questions. And also, real quickly, just one more quick plug of this. And again, this is a League 2 exclusive. We are asking for your game of the weeks, performances of the week, and your villains of the week. And we will get to them at the very end of the show. And now on to the questions. Just real quickly, here is how you can send in a question to the show. If you are not watching live on YouTube, you can tag us in on Twitter at OverTheBarFB. If you can't have access or you don't have access to YouTube and you would like to send in a question. So I'm just going to quickly read through some of the questions and see what we have this evening, as we have got quite a bit. Gary Jones, hope Dave enjoyed his trip to Carlisle despite the results. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether he enjoyed it or not. How many grounds have you done in League Two, David?
All right, let's have a quick look. I'll try and tick a few off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've done 11. If you want to include Rochdale, I've done, I know it's like the home team, but 11 of the remaining 23. If you want to include Rochdale, I've done 12 of the 24. So yeah, I'd like to do more, but obviously time and finances and have a huge impact on that, don't they? And there's quite a few in there that are new to League Two this season. So yeah, I'd like to do a few more. Obviously, Rochdale, touch wood, will be in League Two next season. So hopefully I'll get the opportunity to get to a couple more next season.
And I've only been to 4 League Two grounds, most of them being from when some of the League Two teams were in League One. So yeah, I'm not as cultured as David is in regards to League Two. So Gary Jones, despite recent results, let's be honest, Forest Green Rovers are going to be champions with a few weeks in hand, aren't they? So yeah, do you reckon Forest Green Rovers could be champions with a few weeks in hand, or a few games in hand? Sorry.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered this earlier, didn't we? I think the way things are going, it's Northampton, Tranmere, even teams below that could claw Forest Green back a little bit over the next couple of weeks, especially considering the way Forest Green are playing. They don't seem to want to romp away the title anymore, do they? I think they're trying to bring the team a bit closer to them. So I still think they'll go up, and I still think they'll go up as champions, but they're really not making it easy for themselves, are they, at the minute?
So, Mark Baker, this isn't so much a question, but interesting to see what Bradford do look like when Hughes has had a proper chance to get to know the squad. So, Hughes, do you reckon that they're at least going to give him a transfer window if things don't work out for him?
Yeah, I'm expecting a big overhaul in the summer. Mark Hughes will use his contacts to bring in quite a few players, I imagine. So, yeah, he'll be using this remaining few weeks of the season to assess that squad, and I'm expecting a big overhaul yet again at Bradford in the summer.
Dan Green, he has asked you about your trip against Carlisle. It's almost as though we're rubbing it into your face with it. Sorry about that. But he has asked you, what did he make of your trip? Good away day. We've answered 2 of those, but what is the ground like for pubs? Because you mentioned a few Wetherspoons. Are there any like local pubs in Hertfordshire maybe?
Yeah, it's only like a 10-15 minute walk from the centre, so there's plenty there. There's a couple more on the walk. There's one pretty much across the road. I can't remember what it's called now for the life of me, but it was absolutely packed before the game, and after the game they were queuing up to get in. So it looks like it's a busy one for the home fans, but I think if you're an away fan, just stick to the city centre. There's, like I said, weirdly enough, there was 2 Wetherspoons right next door to each other. 2 different pubs, both Wetherspoons, but right next door to each other, which I've never seen before. In terms of the ground, Dan, it was a really nice ground. I like Carlisle. I'm a big fan of, in terms of nostalgia, I'm a huge fan of the more older-fashioned stadiums, and the stand where the dugouts are, it's a mixture of seating and terracing. Which is quite rare to see in this modern era. So yeah, it's a ground that I would recommend visiting. If they start doing better, get bigger crowds, I imagine the atmosphere will be incredible in there. But at this moment in time, I think the atmosphere is lacking a little bit.
And I'm afraid that I'll have to announce that you guys are now banned from mentioning Carlisle versus Rochdale. I'm sorry, this is a decision that I had to put among myself. I don't like it myself, but we're not going to mention it again tonight as it's probably a bit too painful for David. But John Fleming, huge game tomorrow as my beloved Latics take on Carlisle. As Dave saw, Rochdale lose to Carlisle in the week, and he said it was also a boundary for our game. Okay, basically, I read the Rochdale versus Carlisle bit. Apologies about that. I did say that we had banned any mention from that game in the chat, but we couldn't avoid it. But what do you make about the game tomorrow? What is your prediction for Latics versus Carlisle? As in
It's a bit
score prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 2-all draw. Actually, no, 1-all draw in this one. Sadly, like with Oldham, it was the first game under Sheridan, so I've not seen what Oldham are like under Sheridan. Apart from the results, I've not obviously we had to play Sheridan his first game, so now he's had a few more weeks. I imagine they are looking a lot better. Similar with Carlisle, Paul Simpson had barely had a week in the job. It was his second game in charge, but Carlisle were very, very strong at the back. We cut them open a few times, but yeah, they were defending for their lives. They were battling for each other. So yeah, it's going to be a real slugfest, I think, this one. I can't see anything separating the two sides. I think 1-all draw, and I think that does benefit Carlisle more than Oldham, but yeah, it's a really, really tough one to call.
John Fleming, Niall Canavan, who I remember from his days at Plymouth as the villain of the week. Red card for Barrow. His teammates did great to fight for an hour with a man less. Just a shame that they couldn't hang on a bit longer. Dan Green, Colchester 2 versus Colchester 2, Leyton, Orient 2 for Game of the Week. Jack Aitchinson for Hero of the Week, and James Clark for Villain of the Week. And Dan Green again, out of the 12 grounds Dave has done, which was his favourite? So, favourite ground that you've been to in League Two, and why? Like, was it because of nostalgia reasons, good hospitality, maybe?
I'm going to go with Bristol Rovers. I'm a huge fan of the Memorial. One for the nostalgia, because we pretty much sealed promotion back there in 2014. It was on an Easter Monday. I got sunburn, which it's very hard to do in Britain, especially with someone as pale as I am. Found a really nice, I'm a huge fan of craft beers, so found a nice craft beer shop, bar on like the main front. And the atmosphere was really, really good. That stand behind the goal where most of the home fans go was a really, really good atmosphere. Cracking atmosphere amongst the Dale supporters because we were good in for promotion. And yeah, in terms of my memory supporting Dale, that away trip is high up there just because it was an incredible day and a really good, again, like I said about Carlisle, I love old-fashioned stadiums, and Bristol Rovers is definitely one of those. Yeah, so if you ever get the opportunity to do go down there, because stadiums like that aren't going to be around for much longer, sadly, are they?
No, they're not, and it's a real shame, really, as all of these old stadiums do hold, like quite a lot of nostalgia, really, don't they? Like Portman Road has like the same thing for me, really, where it's a proper old-fashioned stadium, and it holds in the atmosphere well. But Mark Baker, and here is the question I was looking for: is if it's okay, I'm going to answer this one first. How many League One grounds have you both done, and which is your favourite? I've been to 13 League One grounds, and my favourite, controversial opinion, and I'm going to have some people absolutely kill me for saying this, but I quite like Stadium MK. Don't judge me for saying that. Barely any home fans, loads of away fans, fantastic ground. So yeah, quite like my away day to Stadium MK. Not many home fans, of course, but quite a nice ground. How about you, David? How many League One grounds, have you been to? And favourite League One ground?
I'm just quickly totting it up now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I've done 8 in total. I'm going to go with my favourite as Hillsborough. Went there when Dale were in League One and Sheffield Wednesday in League One. So I think you're going back about again 10 years or so. I'm pretty certain they were managed by Dave Jones at that point. But I think just because of the history of the stadium, it was a really, really good home backing. Really enjoyed my trip there. I enjoyed my trip to Bolton a couple of years ago, just simply because we got one over on Keith Hill. It was a big result for us at the time. I think the other one that deserves mention is Accrington again. Cause I think it's becoming clearly abundant. I'm a huge fan of small old school stadiums, and Accrington is definitely one of those. So yeah, they're my favourite three. Obviously 8 in total that I've done.
Yeah, and I'd quite like to mention Accrington as well. I remember when I went to an FA Cup game there a couple of years ago, the owner actually went into like the club lounge, like the bar after the game, and he hung out with a whole load of Accrington fans, said hello to a few Ipswich fans, and it was a really nice touch, really. It's a really nice, small, local club. Mark Baker, I watched that Forest Green Rovers Newport game. It was interesting. Gets my vote for Game of the Week this week. Hard to pick performance or hero, if I'm honest. A couple of villains in James Clark and Niall Canavan. Yeah, I remember Niall Canavan being a bit of mind my language, but shithouse when he was at Plymouth. Good player though, solid player. Always loved a good challenge.
We had him at Dale and he was absolutely dog shit, to put it politely. So when we got rid of him, I was like, yeah, it was absolutely terrible. I can't remember we got rid of him too. Might have been Plymouth actually. I think most Dale fans were happy to see the back of him. Absolutely dreadful. So yeah, he's probably one of the villains of my last decade being a Dale fan.
I'd say one thing about Niall Canavan is that whenever he was at Plymouth, he always loved, like the 2-footer challenge, just a really stupid challenge that there's no need for. And he was always one of those players who was, for no reason whatsoever, just suspect of those really petty fouls due to, like his head. But I quite liked him at Plymouth. Probably not cult hero by the sounds of it, but yeah, I mean, he was all right at Plymouth. So John Fleming, I won't lie, if you guys were to do more shows about away days, grounds, where to eat and where to drink, I would be a very happy man. Yeah, just real quickly, I will be going to a few extra games. So if I don't know whether you need permission to film at grounds, but I'll probably do a bit of recording there anyway, record beforehand.
Just to kind of touch on that, I was not politely told off at Carlisle for trying to film certain bits. I weren't trying to record the game, but when they noticed I was trying to film a couple of bits, I was asked politely to not put my phone away, but to direct my phone away from the pitch from my camera. And then even when I tried recording some of the fans, they were not happy with that. So I think some grounds are stricter than others because I've never been told off anywhere else for it anyway.
Yeah, Ipswich are totally fine with it, and you have fans doing it all the time, like local podcasts. But you see fans at all these Premier League games, all these Championship games, holding up phones anyway, so I don't really know what the issue is. But I'll try and do something. If I do get told off, then I get told off. But I'll probably try and record before the game anyway. So, I don't know, we might talk about doing a few previews of grounds and that, but we'll let you know in the future.
Just on that one as well, it is a little because I don't drive, you see, and obviously public transport to games. Obviously, some stadiums are getting more secluded from city centres, and it just makes things a lot harder to get to. So, as much as I'd love to get to more grounds, sometimes it's not that practical. Obviously, I've got the Buy Me a Coffee page, which I've shared. I'm pretty certain it's in the description. So, if any of you guys want to fund my away days, I'm never going to say no to it. But yeah, it's a very, very dear do, and obviously we don't run this site for profit or anything like that. So any money we want to put into like going following the teams and do videos at away grounds will be our own. And unfortunately, in the current climate, it's not. I don't say it's not on the high list of not high on my list of priorities. I'd love to go to away games, but unfortunately, other things do need to take priority, don't they?
Yeah, and Wycombe, for example, in League One is probably one of the worst grounds to get to if you can't drive, because it's literally in the middle of nowhere. Literally, like you have to walk to it, quite a long walk as well. So like away days like that, the one tip I would give anybody going to Wycombe is drive there, because you don't want to be walking there from the bus or from the train station. It's always quite awkward over at Wycombe. So Gary Jones. He agrees. Again, when I do a few extra games, maybe Plymouth games in League One, I might do a few quick videos beforehand. But they'll be very far and few between. Maybe I'll maybe do a few Ipswich ones as well. Josh Lane with Salford looking like they won't be getting promoted. Do you think that the class of '92 will sack their manager and invest big in the summer? So, David, they've already invested big, but Gary Bowyer, do you think his time is almost up?
He'll be given to the end of the season, and I think to say they're not going to get promoted, I think is still a bit short-sighted. They're only two. We've got 2 games in hand and 6 points outside the top 7. And looking at the running, I don't want to say it's favourable, but it's not the hardest of run-ins. So yeah, I'm not ruling it out. I still think it could sneak into the top 7. I still think Ian Henderson is due to come back. I'm not entirely sure when, but from what I'm reading, he is due back for the end of the season. His experience and goals will be pivotal for them. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how they go in the next few weeks, and obviously I'll be watching them at closer hand tomorrow.
Gary Jones, I'm going with James Clark as villain, Aitchinson as hero of the week, and Newport versus Forest Green as game of the week. Aitchinson, of course, playing for Newport, so Newport have done very, very well this week. Dan Green, as a Rochdale fan, what does Dave make of the possible resurrection of Bury FC and a return to Gig Lane? Do you want your Derby Day back, or have Oldham taken their place as your main rivals?
Now, I want the Bury Derby back. No disrespect to Oldham, but the Bury Derby is so much better than the Oldham one. I genuinely was really pissed off when I went to the Derby with Oldham the other week, because the Bury, I don't say the Bury one's a friendlier rivalry, but it feels like a proper derby rather than a bunch of underage chads like gathering in a corner of the ground, giving it the big one. And I just got really frustrated at the Oldham game of the week, because it was just borderline ridiculous, and the Bury one just seemed like a proper rivalry as opposed to 2 gangs of chavs trying to outdo each other in corners of the stadium and just being offensive idiots for 90 minutes. So yeah, welcome news about Bury, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things pan out over the next few years, and obviously hopefully get back in the Football League and we get our derby back.
Yeah, and agreed. I'd quite like to see Bury FC come back. Yeah, I do remember reading on the news that a few fans did get in trouble for, like inappropriate chants at the derby at Oldham versus Rochdale. And you never like to see it, really. You want a good derby with a good atmosphere and at the same time friendly competition as well. Like you always like to see those type of things. Mark Baker, you should do your top 10 shithouses of League 2 and League 1 at some point. Yeah, that's a good idea. We could do that at the end of the season. Final question of the week before we close out. Plenty of people with their phones out in the Premier League games where the plastic fans hang out. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why I find it daft that at some grounds you can't record and, at others you can. From my experience, the Premier League and Championship clubs are friendlier when it comes to recording. I don't know why. Maybe iFellow's an issue. I'm not too sure. But, like Reading, I've been to a few Reading games as well, and Reading were absolutely fine with fans recording on their ground. Ipswich are as well, so probably depends on the club. But as I'm so bad at segues, Dave, quickly save me, close out the show.
Yeah, no problem at all. So yeah, that's everything again for another week. Again, thank you very, very much. Obviously, I know I've not been around as much the last couple of weeks, and Ben's done a fantastic job of stepping in for me. So thank you everyone for showing him and myself the support over the last few weeks and the whole season so far. As always, if you do want to check us out in the meantime, we do have the website, www.otvfootball.net, which you can see on the screen now. We are getting plenty of new content out daily. It has been slowed down the last couple of days because of a technical issue on the site, but that's now been resolved. So with the articles we've had backlogged, we'll be flooding the website over the coming days. So make sure you check that out. Also, we have the very active Twitter page at @OverTheBarFB. So make sure you check us out on there. If you are listening to the audio-only version of the show, make sure you head over to Twitter, drop us a follow on there. If you are listening to the audio-only version of the show, or you're watching us live on Twitter, make sure you head over to youtube.com/OverTheBarFB drop us a subscribe on there. Click the bell icon for all the latest video content we're getting out there, and you'll also be notified of the competition that we're going to be running. I think it will be next week, all being well. So yeah, make sure you check us out and drop that subscription while you're there. That's everything for another week. We will be back next week with the League One and League Two shows again. So make sure you check us out, and obviously keep an eye out on all our social media channels and whatnot for the competition. And we'll see you all next week. And thank you for watching.